Hi, I'm Pam Hayes from Hayes Sewing Machine Company of Wilmington, Delaware, and welcome back to our creative videos. And today we're going to do a little pattern called Call Me, and it's done by Annie, and it's just a nice little simple pattern to work with. What it's going to have is a zippered pouch, and it also has mesh with elastic at the top for your cell phone or whatever else you deem that you would need. Candy bar wouldn't hurt either. It has a long strap to it that you can adjust, but it's designed to be a cross body bag. Okay?
Be nice if you're out walking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, so they'll give you all of what you need to cut, everything else with it, but basically you will need a little bit of mesh. You will need a little bit of fold over elastic, and you need a 7-inch zipper. And I would work with a zipper that you could sew over. I wouldn't do metal teeth, crunch crunch, needle needle, break break. So, and it's a 7-inch or longer, and just make sure it works before you try to put it in, because yeah, I've had that happen before. Alrighty, first thing, you are going to make the fabric for the body of the bag. Alright, so you either are going to put your dual feed foot on, or you want to put your walking foot on, and I'm just going to put my walking foot on here. Alright, and I'm just going to tell my little machine that I have the walking foot on. Now, I have marked it, and I'm just doing kind of simple straight line quilting. No need to get particularly fancy with this, because when you're working with it, we're going to be cutting this piece of fabric anyway. So we're going to take, and because I'm going through soft and stable, you do want to increase your length of stitch. I'm going up to about 3. And then I'm just going to sew down. So again, all of the measurements will be given on the pattern as to what you need to cut. So again, we're going to sew, and I have marked these roughly 1 inch apart. Or if you had a seam gauge for your walking foot, this would be perfect time to use it. And line it up. But I don't think it's going to matter too much, because again, this particular piece is going to be cut apart. I'm using cotton material, top and bottom. And this fabric would be what they would call the main body fabric. And the main body fabric, and then this would be considered the accent. You also have to have a little piece of vinyl. So you're going to make sure you have a little bit of vinyl there. And all right, so we are done our main stitching. All right, so now, once we have that, it's going to tell us on the pattern what we need size-wise. So we're going to take, and it is 4 3/4 in the width, and you're going to cut 2 pieces of, you're going to cut your, basically your body and your pocket B out of this. So I'm just making sure that nothing is shifted too badly. Okay, so we're going to get a nice edge. And we're doing 7 1/4. Get myself lined up here. So 7 1/4. And then we're doing 3 inches. Then we're going to cut these down a little bit as well. And then we're doing 4 3/4. I'm just neatening one side. And then 4 3/4. And we're going to do the same on here. We're going to do 4 3/4. Make sure I'm getting it the right way. Nothing's worse than having to stop and cut out another piece of fabric.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we would ever do that.
The old measure twice, cut once.
So 4 3/4. Alrighty. Alright. So they allow you to have something for, if your fabric slips. Okay. Now they're going to tell you they want you to seal the edge, and that sounds so technical. Basically, you're going to stitch 1/4 inch all the way around. No, I'm sorry, not 1/4 inch, 1/8.
1/8 of an inch. And straight stitch, zigzag, what are we doing?
Straight stitch. So basically, I'm just lining it up along the inside toe of my walking foot. Alrighty. And we're just going to stitch all the way around. So like I said, if you were, when you cut it, you're like, oh, my quilting is, I'm cutting some of my quilting. It won't matter because we're going to seal the edge anyway. So we're going all the way around.
And can you just hold that up so that they can see that?
Absolutely. I'll
So
see if I can
come
find
closer
it.
to me. See if we can zoom in. Oh, look at that.
Okay, so see how we're just a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
1/8 of an inch,
Got it.
teeny tiny. What they're trying to have it not do, can you see how you don't want it flapping in the breeze? Okay, so that's basically what they want. But the seam allowance on this particular bag is 1/4 inch. So you really want to try to get this tack down less than that. Does it sound like fun having to go after the fact and having to unpick everything?
Nope. And
Nope.
sewing should be fun.
So again, 1/8 of an inch. Alright, and we're going all the way along. And bada bing. So those two pieces are going to be the pockets. Now, you'll see this quite often on this particular pattern. She gives you little jobs and then she says, set aside.
Okay.
So we're doing very, very well that way. All right, we're going to do the pocket. That's vinyl, and I'm so sorry. It's hard to see, but it's vinyl.
Okay.
It's clear.
It's
Okay,
clear.
It's clear. It's vinyl.
That's the point.
That's the whole point. So what you're going to do, they have you cut binding pieces. And the binding pieces, if you're saying, I don't do well with binding, look how small they are. They're no big deal. What they have you do is, she's not a big proponent of pressing these. So you're just going to fold them, and we're going to line up technically the wrong side.
But is there a wrong side of vinyl?
I have yet to see one.
Okay. So pick a side. Any
Pick a
side.
side. Pick a side, any side. Yeah, I have not ever really
But we're
found-
stitching it on the long side, not the short side.
Oh, no. Wrong side.
Okay.
Yes, and we're doing the long side. Ooh. And I've just kept my walking foot on. It'll be fine. So we're sewing down again this time 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so we're only doing that 1/8 of an inch when we were sealing it. Then we take and we're going to flip it around. Make sense?
And top stitch it.
Top stitch it. That's it. Now, do yourself a favor for the vinyl. Get some clips. Because you really don't want...
It's hard to pin through.
Oh, it's hard to pin. And then remember, if you put a pin in it...
You leave a hole.
No, you leave a hole. All right, so now we're just...
Well, maybe we want some ventilation in our binding.
That's true. Absolutely. All right, so again, we're going to stitch. I am very near the fold, and I will show you once I'm done. I know that's better for you. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
All right. And then what do we do?
Set it aside.
Set it aside. Woohoo! We are so good. All right. We are going to take back the little tiny, what they call pocket bee. And it sounds so terrifying, but it really isn't. It's just this little guy. Now, you're going to put your zipper. Remember, I told you, test to make sure it works. And then we are going to grab our zipper foot. Putting in the zipper, you really have to put the zipper foot on. I've never been successful in doing any other. And I'm going to also tell it on this machine that I have foot 4 on. Technically 4D. All right. So when we line this up, they get kind of specific. So if you look at the instructions, it says, with the pre-quilted, right sides together, align it on the long side, and you're going to allow, they want to have a little bit of the tape, about 1/8 of an inch beyond the fabric.
All right, hang on for a second. Let me
And we're
zoom
looking
in on this so that people can see. Hold that up just a little bit. Tip it towards me. All right, so, okay, gotcha.
Can you see
1/8
how
of an
it's-
inch extending.
Yep, 1/8 of an inch extend. So again, you have right sides together and allow basically equal distance. Can you see how there's, you want roughly equal distance, but when you're sewing this, you want, again, a little bit of the tape extending over the top. If you didn't do this, I don't think life would come to you.
Okay.
You know.
Do you think it's actually mathematical for the pattern so that the pattern
Could be.
shows up, you know, it size-wise?
Yeah, it could be. I didn't find
That's an interesting thought.
It's just an
Are all
interesting-
zipper tapes equal?
Nope.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Nope. And the biggest thing to me is you want to be near the teeth, not through the teeth.
Got it.
All right. So, bada bing. That's what we're looking for. So we've stitched, and you're going to flip it down. And they want to have it so, see how it will cover the fabric.
Oh, maybe that's why they have it
Yeah.
extended. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, does that make sense?
It's like somebody planned
I
it.
thought this out, right? So again, you see how again the little bit coming up?
And then you don't have to zigzag the edge or
Yeah.
worry about it fraying.
You got it.
I love it.
So we're now going to top stitch. And you do want to top stitch this because look what it's gonna, you know, do that. So we need it to lay as flat as possible. And you'll love this pattern. if you are one of those people that say, I can always make one side of the zipper look good, but I have trouble matching it on the other. You don't match.
Oh.
What you do is you take another piece of fabric.
Cool.
Cool. All right. So remember, now, be smart about this. We're going to do this on the wrong side, because remember how they had us do it on the wrong side. So what are you going to do? You're going to match this bit so it matches with this.
Got it.
I don't want to see any of you do this.
Gotcha.
Think it through.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to make sure it lines up. And she does tell you that. That make sure it lines up. And I'm going to throw a pin or two in there. Still want to work with your zipper foot. Technically, why? Because we're putting this on a zipper.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still looking at the wrong side of the zipper because that's how she wants us to,
Okay.
you know, but you can flip it the other way. I'd love to be daring. All right. So see how she wants us to put it on the wrong side, and then it's going to flip
around
over and look pretty. All right. So I'm just going to line this up. Again, if it would freak you out that you don't see where the teeth are, by all means, sew it the other direction. I guess I don't find it that stressful. All right. And then you see what, and then we want to wrap it around.
And just cover the stitching that you just did.
Yeah, cover the stitching. We're making it pretty. Just trying to trim up some of my stray stuff.
Give it a haircut.
Give it a haircut. Yep. And don't worry too much about it. I have, you know, but what happens if I don't sew it accurately and, you know, I get it where it's, I don't use the right seam allowance and all of that. She's going to have you trim.
Oh, the pocket.
Yeah, they give you a measurement of 3 1/4. So if you mess up a little bit,
Interesting.
nobody
And I
will-
guess that does take into account different size zipper tapes.
Yep, you got it.
It's like somebody planned it.
I know, right? I know. Who'd have thunk it?
That's why I like her pattern so much.
Yeah, the by any stuff.
She's very detailed.
Yep. Alrighty. Alright, now, because I'm kind of trimming this up, the urge to cut the zipper tape at this point is pretty strong. Hold back. And it does say, do not, and not is in capitalized, trim the zipper tape at this point. Alright, so, ta-da!
Very nice.
Now, we're going to go over to our rotary cutting, and we're going to measure 3 1/4. And I'm pretty much right there. I'm at pretty much a 3 1/4, so I'm just going to leave it.
Show off.
Show off, I know. Now, if you weren't, okay,
You
if you
trim off the fabric end.
trim off the fabric and then reseal it.
Okay, gotcha.
She recommends resealing it. All right, so what are we going to do?
Put it in the pile.
Put it in the pile. Look, the page, we're
Wow.
flying.
We're halfway done on a 2-page pattern.
All right, take a look, see. This is your mesh. This is what's going to be the back section. All right, and they want you to put elastic, fold over elastic. So I went with gray. And this is again a time I find clips to be more advantageous. All right, fold over elastic. It will have, it's not too well defined, but you can see that it wants to fold. Maybe on the other side you can see it. See, there's
Hold
like
it up just a little bit. No, I'm sorry. Put it back down where you were. Let me
Like
just
that?
zoom out a little bit. Yeah, you can actually see that line
Can you
in the
see
camera.
there's a
Yeah.
line there?
Mhm.
Well, that's your fold line.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's your fold line. So what you want to do is you want to basically put the mesh at the fold line. And I'll kind of hold it up for you. So I pin the ends, and then I just fold the middle.
Okay. And are we doing any stretching of set elastic, or are we just treating it like a binding?
Just treating it as a binding. And I like to do a zigzag.
Down. There you go. Perfect.
I don't know if you can see how well you can see it.
Yep.
But I like
So it
to
has
do
a little bit of stretch.
Yeah. So, how big I made that is, well, first of all, you change your, we're not doing a zipper foot on that. So we're going to change back to our regular foot. And I work with my zigzag about 2 in width and 2 in length. So 2 and 2. That way it gives it just a little bit of a stretch. Okay. And we're going to sew towards not the fold, but the other
The
side,
open ends.
the open ends. And there you go. Just try to get it going.
And the fact that you're sewing on a mesh, which is like sewing on air, could you do like a quilter's cheat where you do like a landing pad at the beginning?
Sure.
And that way? Oh, very nice.
Let's see how it's going to...
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
So now, at that point,
We're going to set it aside.
set it aside. Okay.
Wow, the pieces are getting less and less here.
I know, right? Isn't that cool? All right. Bias tape. Bias binding. We're going to make it. You take a 13, for this project, she wanted you to cut it 13.5 by 13.5 square. And then we're going to cut it on the diagonal. Or a little girl I knew when she was little, diangle.
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 Who said that?
I'll tell you later.
Oh.
She may not want it on the internet. All right. Now, you're going to sew this seam.
Mm-hmm.
It should look like a tooth.
Okay, good enough.
All right. So when we line this up, we're going to sew this guy. And you'll see, they'll kind of tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 1/4 inch seam with a straight stitch. Remember we
Oh, yeah, zigzag.
we were just doing a zigzag. So straight stitch. Alright, and we're just going to sew all the way along. And we're going to press that seam open.
Open, okay.
So all I'm doing is I'm just pressing the seam flat.
In order to minimize bulk.
Yep. All right. So now we have a parallelogram.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Something like that.
Yep.
All right.
Parallelogram it is.
Parallelogram it is.
One of the few things I learned in geometry class.
All right. So we're going to take our parallelogram and we're going to do 2 1/4 for our bias tape. And we're going to cut them out of this, and then we're going to sew them together. So you do have quite a few joins, because remember, what did we start out with?
A 13-inch square.
13 and a half, technically.
13 and a half. Oh,
Technically.
failed the pop quiz.
So if you didn't want as many joins, make a bigger block. But I would do bias. I know some people are saying, well, I don't normally do bias if I'm doing bindings and stuff. See the edges?
The curve, yeah.
Do bias.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, sewing is supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do bias,
Not fun.
not fun. Just trying to get it lined up. Alrighty. So now we're going to join these together. And this is where you're going to try to have 1/4 inch extending and 1/4 inch extending.
Can you hold that back up again?
Sure.
There you go. 1/4 inch and
See how it's going to be
Yep, got
1/4
it.
inch and 1/4 inch.
give it 1/4 inch ears.
1/4 inch ears. All right, and we are just going to join all of these in a row. One long stretch. All right, and we have one more. So it's only, you're only doing like 3 seams, so it's no biggie. Now, you don't have to worry about pressing it long ways. Remember how I said that she doesn't recommend that?
Mm-hmm.
But we will press the seams that I'm physically sewing here. We are going to press them open.
Okay.
Alright, so you should have a long piece. And again, the short little seams that I just have sewn, I am pressing that 1/4 inch seam open. Okay. Now, I'm also going to do myself a favor and trim the little ears off for the seam that I pressed open. I just like it, it's a little neater.
Ow.
Alrighty, we took our silly pill this morning. Alright. Alright, so press the seams, and then what does it say?
Set it aside.
Woohoo! Alright, now, the moment we've been waiting for. Assemble the bag. Yay! Alright, so you're going to take your big guy, okay, your larger piece, and we want to attach the vinyl one. And what she wants is we're going to mark 3 inches up from the bottom. So if you have a directional on here, this is the time to pay attention. I purposely did an all over. If there's a directional, I didn't see it on here. There could be, but I'm going for that being the top, but I don't really think it matters on this fabric. You're going to line this up. There's a pause while Pam, I have to do the, I want to do this first. We mark the 3 inches, but we want to bind
Oh, sure.
this
That way
off.
you're not dealing with a vinyl
Yes.
pocket.
So yes, I'm going to do this next. So again, I'm going to take, what do? We sew at the wrong side, and I'm going to do my 1/4 inch seam. All right, so doing my 1/4 inch seam. Don't want to sew my instructions. Why does it sound like I'm sewing through paper?
Crunch, crunch, crunch.
Crunch, crunch, crunch. All right, so then we're going to flip it over. I think that looks really pretty. It's like I planned it. And we're going to go, and we're going to stitch just like we have with all the other bindings. And I'm just using my pin as a helper, so if I see any of the previous row of stitching, I'm using my pin, kind of like a stylist. Alrighty. Bound it. Now, you can see why I stopped. Take a look. Can you see how it would be
It's close, right?
It would be a little close. And I'm sure she told us along the way to do that. All right, we're going to line this up. I'm going to start on the right-hand side. And we're going to stitch till we get to the bottom. Go across where I've marked, remember that 3-inch up line? I'm stitching across. Now, you might have to push this through a little bit. Because remember, what is this? Vinyl, right?
Sticking to the bottom of your
It
foot
can
a little
stick to
bit.
the bottom of the foot. So if you have, before you start this, if you have a Teflon foot, put the Teflon foot on. Or a lot of times your walking foot or something like that. All right. So we have that guy done. So now we're going to go, and I love it, do not sew across the top. She says that.
Oh, well, like I said, detail.
Details, details. All right. So now we're going to stack the one that we did and see how it's going to hide the bottom.
Oh, nice.
So it's nice and
Makes it
finished.
pretty.
Yes. Nice and finished. Now you're getting to be a little on the thicker side here. So what do we always do? We increase the length of our stitch. Now they're going to tell you, they want you to stitch all the way around. Now before I get to sewing this side, what are you going to do?
Move the zipper tape.
So it's in the middle.
Or the tab.
Yep. I'm not going to worry about moving the tab right now. I'm just going to leave it for the moment. All right, and again, seam allowance we're working with here, that 1/8 of an inch. We just need a little bit. We're stitching across the zipper. Don't think too much of it, but can you see why when we're stitching across the zipper, a metal toothed zipper may not be
The best choice.
the best choice? All right, so
Make
now
sure you have lots of needles on
not
hand.
unless you have a lot of needles. All right, now at this point, definitely
Get the zipper tab
zipper
inside.
out of the way. If you don't, that's why they invented seam rippers. You know how that goes.
Just don't cut it off before you
Just don't cut it
correct the
off.
problem.
All right.
Nice.
Ta-da! So I have my pocket, but then I have a pocket.
Yeah, zipper
There.
pocket. That's where the mad money goes.
That's where
So
the
when you
mad
do
money-
your long walk, you can stop at Wawa and get ice cream on the way home.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Now it tells you, and I promise it does tell you, you can
cut off your zipper tape.
and it says trim excess zipper tape even with the sides. So, yay. All right, that's the front. Now, remember the mesh that we worked with? She wants you to put it 1 1/4 down. Look at that, the eyeball's not too bad. 1 1/4 down. You know, I bet if you did it 1 1/8, it would still be just fine. All right, so what's going to happen, you notice that it's bigger. You know, it extends around, done on purpose, because then if you've ever sewn with mesh, you know it can shift a little bit. So we're going to just line it up the best we can, and then we just trim it off. Okay, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Once again, back to the clips because it doesn't
I
fit very well.
would. Yep. And do yourself a favor. I felt it
Yeah. Make sure the zipper tab's it. That's a good.
in the middle because kunk, kunk, kunk.
Mm-hmm.
Why is my machine not moving the fabric? The feed dogs are caught. Remember, you don't have to worry about, you know, is a straight stitch going to be enough for the mesh? Because what are we going to do all around the edge here?
Put a binding
Put a
on.
binding. So we're just anchoring this down. All right. Now, I'm going to take, and I'm just going to trim the extras. So see how I'm just trimming any mesh that's beyond the straight stitch. We're going to trim that off. And any of the elastic. And we're going to just try to do a haircut. Get all my little crumblies. All right, ta-da! Now, you'll notice it's rounded.
Mm-hmm.
She recommends a 2.5 inch circle. Couldn't find a 2.5 inch circle very easily, so I found a spool thread.
Because everybody's got a spool of thread in their sewing studio. There you
Absolutely.
go.
And see what I did? It's probably.
Oh, hold on.
I'm sorry, I can't do that in the air.
That's all right. Let me just move the camera. There you
All
go.
right. So see how I just plopped it down?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm right-handed, so I have to do it the other way. And I'm just taking it and rounding it down. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, I think this is 2 3/8. Close enough. Alrighty. So they basically want you to sew, again, to seal it, a little inside. Basically just curve it. Don't ever think this part. All we're trying to do is make a curve. Alright, does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very good. Alright, then we trim it up. Alright?
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is to have it roughly the same size.
A good goal.
Ta-da! Now, the bias tape. What she has you do is whatever inches this is, and I did not measure.
Roughly about 2 yards.
I would say roughly 2 yards, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So roughly 2 yards. And what she has you do is she has you extend, and she gives you, oh, I think it's like 6 to 8 inches. So see how we're looking at the front.
Mm-hmm.
We line it up, and we have 6 to 8 inches that's going to be above the top.
Okay.
And we want to actually flip it to the back. I'm sorry. Remember how we are in this pattern? She wants you to sew it on the back and flip
And then
it
flip
around.
it to the front.
Yep. Now, what's going to happen, remember, you're not pressing this. And if you are used to doing traditional quilt binding, this is going to make you twitch a little bit. I'm thinking, I need to press this, but you don't want to. And I'm going to clip this quite well. Okay, and I'm just going along. Now, when you get to the curve, don't pull. The urge is to pull the daylights out of this, and you don't want to. You want to kind of have it as flat or as puffy as possible. See how I'm giving it a little puff? Not a huge amount of puff, because then you'd put pleats in it, but you don't want to stretch it flat. Reason being is then when it tries to go around the curve, it's not going to be as full.
Gotcha.
Because remember,
And it'll want to bend the corner up.
and it'll want to bend the quarter up. Because remember, on this one, we actually did cut it on the bias, correct? All right. So we want to have it as non-stretched as possible.
And the initial strip width was 2 1/4?
2 1/4.
Okay. It's kind of a nice technique. If someone's doing a quilt and they have issues with mitering corners,
Yeah. Just
they
round
could
them a little
use
bit.
that same technique. Maybe instead of using a spool of thread, maybe a saucer or a coffee cup or that kind of thing, and curve the corners of the quilt.
Yep.
No one would ever really care.
Nope.
And you would get away with having to not miter your corners.
It's awesome. All right.
I have to do that as a technique.
All right. So see how you have all of this other, and you're going to leave it. Okay. We start out with this guy. So again, we're going to do our 1/4 inch. I'm just using the regular foot, but I'm looking at the 1/4 inch mark on my machine plate, the needle plate. Okay. And I like to use the longer length of stitch. So I'm around 3 for the straight edges. But when I get down to the curve, you're going to want to do smaller. So I would go back down to kind of normal. Now, if you wanted to put your walking foot back on, A-okay. That would be absolutely fine. I'm just raising my foot a little bit and easing it. It's on the bias. It's going to be a little fiddly. But thankfully, we have to sew about 20 inches max, if that. So, no big deal. And I've shortened down my length of stitch. So when I'm going around the curve, it still looks good. So again, I raise my foot a little bit, trying to keep it as flat as possible. If you need to scooch out the bias binding a little, go for it. Sorry my hand's in the way, but when you do the bag, you'll know why. All right. Now, we want to increase our length of stitch again when we're on the straightaway. And you're going to notice that it's gripping a little bit on your plate because of the vinyl. So if you have a sew slip at home, you know, like a vinyl thing for doing free motion quilting, this would be an awesome time to use it. All right, and then that's where you're going to stop. And then we're going to go and we're going to bring it around to the front.
Oh, cute.
Okay. So on the corners, we're going to stretch it a little bit now. Now, say you were not particularly good with your 1/4 inch. That is why they made scissors. So if you need to trim a little off, I won't tell. And then it'll lay a little flatter. Now be realistic though when you do this, because if you start to trim, you know, it can look different for the height of it.
Should be an adjustment, not a major player.
Yes. And be aware, because we haven't pressed it, you're going to get a little bit of kind of a ripple, sometimes a little ripple effect. Don't worry too much about it, because after the fact, I pressed it and
Press it smooth.
And it's smooth.
Magic bias.
Magic bias. Now, this is where you can do a straight stitch, and I did a straight stitch on the first one that I did. I'm going to play around with this one, and I'm going to do a zigzag, basically the same size that I did for doing the elastic that we did, so kind of 2 by 2. Really doesn't matter, just do yourself a favor. Don't make it a complicated stitch.
Okay.
Because we want to have this done at some point.
No flowers that take 24 stitches in a 1/4 inch spacing, is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. All right, see how I've now pinned it?
Yep, absolutely.
Now, the only thing that tripped me up on this, you don't want to really start sewing that until this is together. Well, you have to make sure you don't twist it. And it is easier said than done. Because I did this, and I used my seam ripper because I had several twists and turns. So I would encourage you to slow your brain down a little bit spread it out, pin it, and then check. See how we want it to be one continuous piece? I don't know if you can get that in the camera. See how we want it with no twists?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's what we're trying to achieve.
Gotcha.
Okay. So at this point, now, I'm a kind of a tall girl, so for me, I use the entire length because it's kind of meant to be a crossbody. This is where she will tell you, try it on.
Mm-hmm.
If you are 5 foot nothing, you may
might wanna
need
shorten it.
You may need to shorten it.
Because it's such a pain when you're walking and your cell phone is hitting your knees.
Yes, you got it. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And where you would trim it is not this piece.
You'd be on the long one.
Yeah, and you want to trim it at obviously the angle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just be aware of that. I think she pretty much gives you, we figured out, what, roughly 72 inches.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty good for most people. You know, if you're particularly tall, that you want, if you want to have it the other way. Alrighty. Again, we're going to give that seam a press. Trim off the little ears. Now, what's going to happen, if you want to look down here, I'm just going to undo this for a second. All right. What you are trying to achieve. Okay, you can see how this is going to be folded.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Can you get your hand out of the way? Yeah, there you go.
All right, so we're going to try to fold it.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to fold it. And as we continue, we're going to, with the piece that's coming up, you're going to bring it up and flip it over.
Okay, cool.
All the way around.
That way so you have no raw edges.
No raw edges. All right, so you're going to go, flip it up, flip it over, and you want it to kind of look as best you can continuous all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when you're all done that, remember, like I said, I'm going to do mine with a zigzag this time as opposed to the straight stitch. 2 in width, 2 in length, and we will see you next time.